I think it's time we stop. Children, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.
The views expressed on this episode of the Came to Believe Recovery podcast do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT, Take 12 Recovery Radio, or our affiliates. The opinions on this episode should not be taken as medical, psychological, or professional advice and are those of the host, co-host, and guests. KHLT and Take 12 Recovery Radio are not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship. Well, greetings, my friends. I am the Monty'man from Take 12 Recovery Radio, and this is the Came to Believe Recovery Podcast. And now, here are your podcasting broadcasters, Tom Williams and Alicia Martinez, to introduce this week's show.
Welcome and welcome back to the Came to Believe Recovery Podcast. I am Alicia and I am here with Tom and the Monty'man.
Wahoo!
Hi, guys.
We're all on the West Coast.
We
Yes,
are.
we are. Yes, we are.
Yeah.
So, before, we're talking about surrender.
Oh, no!
Surrender. What does it mean? How do we do it? Are we doing it? Should you do it? And submitting and all those kind of things. But I'm sure we want to talk a little bit about how the last weekend went and we were together.
Yeah, we were all
And
together, in Long Beach, California.
Long Beach, California. I could not believe the last time I was in Long Beach, it was not nearly as clean and beautiful as it was this time, which was years ago. I was really, I don't know about you, Tom, were you impressed? I was impressed with Long Beach.
I was much more impressed than I thought. I had
Yeah, me
heard
too.
we just kind of blah, and especially when you get down by the waterfront, it actually was nice. Like, it was, they have a really serious working port there. But
the
it
Queen
didn't
Mary.
seem-
They
it
looked at
didn't
the Queen
seem
Mary.
unsightly. The port seemed just like a very organized, working, kind of cool place. And yeah, I was far more impressed and I spoke to some people on the East Coast, friends of mine who have family here in Long Beach, and said, "What? Long Beach isn't nice." I'm like, they've cleaned it up.
They
Well,
have.
there's parts
So
of
bad.
it that
Yeah,
aren't.
but it wasn't as bad as it was made out to be. And the retreat, which was our second one within an ARC of the Salvation Army, was just the same success. So, as you guys know, because you were there, we had elements of their command, which are their officers that come, that are kind of oversee the whole operation, who have engaged with us, had not actually had a chance to come and experience a retreat. And they did this time, and they were just completely impressed. One of the things, we met with them yesterday, guys, in the command offices down in Carson, and they were asked a question about, what are three things that went well and what are three things that we could have improved on, and they really couldn't come up with anything that could be improved on. They were just,
Really?
the follow-up things we're planning anyway. That's all they said. But
That's
they
cool.
said they were really impressed with the competence and the speakers. The way that we did this session was extremely impressive. They loved the small groups. They thought the small groups were really important. And there was one other thing, and just the general profession, there was nothing that they could shoot a hole in with us. And that was good to hear, because, you figure we always can improve on something, and we know we can.
Sure.
So it's the pregame and the postgame, which we all already knew, is making sure that this thing continues. It's the issue we've had since the beginning, and they have had, I think, since the 12 steps or AA or the fellowship started, is the need for fellowship afterwards is required, really, for many reasons. If you're walking with the God of the founders, it requires fellowship. It's a way we just get better. It's a thing you want to do. And we need to be in community. And so facilitating that when we're not there, in absentee, us, meaning the three of us and like us. And so we create a community of people. We're, letting them, I don't want to say this, but we're having beginners try to create this fellowship and keep it going. So it's a challenge. That's what I say, and an opportunity. We're going to work through it, and the powers to be want to work through it too. So it's all positive. It's all systems a go. They want to continue to have us come to ARCs at regular intervals and keep going. And they're looking for graduation rates to go up and occupancy rates to go up. And nobody thinks that it won't happen.
So for the listeners' sake, ARC stands for Adult Rehabilitation Center. And so if you're listening to the show, and I can't, unless you live under a rock, you've probably heard of Salvation Army.
Right.
But you may not, listeners, you may not realize, as many of us did not know, how huge their reach is in the world. It's not just adult rehabilitation. It's community services. It's other education. It's housing the homeless. It's feeding the homeless. I mean, there's so much to it. And I think, and let's see what you guys think. I think one of the reasons they're so huge is because they don't advertise, other than maybe the bell ringers at Christmas and maybe a couple of public service announcements. I think they stay very humble. And I think God honors that, and He has multiplied their ministry in ways that we had no idea how big it is. And now being given the privilege to be a part of that is kind of a mind blower, right, Tom?
Well, it's a mind blower. I mean, we say, that's not even the biggest thing they do, the ARC, but they are the largest provider of rehabilitation services in the country. There's no organization that provides more access to recovery. They provide more facilities than any one group, and maybe several put together. They're just huge, and they do this humble, quiet in the background stuff.
Yeah.
And they're second rated, having the most real estate owned, right? After
something like that, right?
I mean, what?
That's crazy.
I mean, I just kept last time in Pasadena, and now I just keep learning more of these little tidbits of what they do, and the ranking. I know nothing about. I didn't know it was like in the Army with majors and captains.
It's a paramilitary organization.
Commanders. I didn't know that. Yeah. That's fascinating.
It's a church.
Yep.
And a church.
Actually, but
it is. It's considered a denomination. I found out. Yeah.
I think, guys, is that the non-direct influence of money on the people has also been a savior. I mean, nobody's making extra money. I mean, in the military model, the officers, get paid and they get housing given to them and they get this, but like the CEO doesn't get a $20 million bonus if the stocks go up or if the stocks go down or if he saves money. Their mission is to transform people. So they've taken that element off the table in their leadership.
Well, they're all paid the same, we're told.
At the rank, it's all the same.
Yeah.
Right. And then they get benefits and they get us, but I mean, there's some peace to the life that they live. There's some attractiveness. I mean, I loved the military when I was in the U.S. Army. You wake up in the morning, you wear the same thing every day. It's a hard job, but it's one lane. You don't have to do a million things, and everything's taken care of for you. So it's, I remember them saying it's, what they do is less economic and more programmatic. If things work, they spend the money. It's just refreshing, because when I'm in New York City, it's a tax write-off, and can we get a greater benefit if we give more money? And you're dealing with, our profits are going to be down, so we can't give as much, and the CEO, and that whole element is off the table when you deal with them.
Yeah.
And it's refreshing.
I think the thing that impressed me both times at Pasadena and at Long Beach was watching the interaction between the beneficiaries, which listeners, that's for lack of a better term, the clients or the students. They call them beneficiaries, which I love that. But the interaction with them and leadership. I mean, like anything like this, addicts and alcoholics don't like being told what to do. Heck, who does? But so when they first come in, like they do in any, residential program, they're kind of kicking and screaming. They want the pain to stop. They want the consequences of their actions to change. Da, 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 da. And they don't really like people hoarding over them and stuff and it's like the folks that we saw primarily were still in their first 30 days, right?
Yeah, right. They were.
The love that these guys showed toward their leadership in both cases was outstanding. I mean, and they were firm. We saw the captain give some pretty firm, directions a couple times.
Right.
And they complied. And I didn't hear. I was listening for the grumbling. Maybe I don't know if any of you heard it, but I didn't hear it. I didn't hear any.
Mm-mm.
It's amazing.
And it's a tough program too. I mean, they are no nonsense. I mean, if you come in, there's rules. They have some pretty, they got to shave. They got to have short hair. They've got to wear collared shirts. They got to make their bed every day, of which we say, good.
Mm-hmm.
A little
Yeah.
discipline, a little is awesome. Oh, and guys, I did hear little birdie conversation that they may require them to have their 4-step inventory sheet on their night table.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Right now, they're not allowed to have anything on the night table.
Right.
Oh.
It's a military thing. Everything put away. I
That's
get
right.
it.
Can't have anything hanging on your bunk.
Right.
Yeah.
But now they're talking about having it, and they think, this is a conversation we had yesterday, that even a new person who hasn't been through it, he comes in and sees everybody's got their 4-step inventory. It's a unity thing. It's you guys
I
are all
need
working
mine.
this. I want mine. Right.
Right.
So we'll see what happens. There's so much conversation, and I mean, I think we had a meeting that was going to be 45 minutes. It was 2 hours yesterday with them, and it went way beyond what we even thought that we were going to talk about. But our partnership, the mission is so parallel. It's more than parallel. It crosses. I mean, they're reaching the least and last and the lost. That's what they do. They've always done that, the Salvation Army. Taking people up the street and giving them homes and giving them a hand up, not a hand out.
Right.
So, and that's what we're doing. I mean, such a natural partnership, and it's flowed so easily. There's been nothing that hasn't felt right about this partnership.
So again, for the listener's sake, if you don't know what we're talking about here, is applying and implementing the 12-step process within a very short period of time. As I see if I get this wording right, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, as the Salvation Army's actual required curriculum. True?
Well, that's what we're working towards. It hasn't been codified yet or legislated or orders. We say the orders.
But that's the
haven't been
direction.
written.
Yeah.
But that's the direction. They believe in the God of the founders. They believe in this 12-step process, which is really the cardinal teachings of Jesus and the way of life that he taught to live a happy, joyous, and free life is parallel their theology, as it were. And so in our theology, so why this process wouldn't be in place with their beneficiaries is a question they're asking. So they're saying it should be.
Yeah.
So as we work out the details, I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere down the road this is their institutionalized process. You come in at Salvation Army, ARC, you're going through the steps. The way the guys did it in the 30s, the 40s, the way it was most successful. Every single person, you come in, you're going through it. Right away, as soon as you come in. Part of orientation, your first week.
Wow.
And that's we all scratch our heads saying, well, of course, that's what should happen. And then they're going to spend 6 months learning how to live 10, 11, and 12 in a semi-controlled or completely controlled atmosphere with lots of good support and lots of good, influence and the removal of the bad influence as best as we can, and which is all of the mainstream stuff that's out there that have been watered, elements of the program being watered down, elements of things that were never part of the original program. They're ready to get rid of it all. They're ready to say, we don't want to be involved with any of that. We don't care if we lose those people. I mean, they're ready to do that. I mean, it hasn't been done, but philosophically, they say, we either believe it or we don't. Same like we were saying before we came on. We believe it, or we don't.
Yeah. What, Alicia?
I was going to say, for them to speak that, because they were saying that,
Yeah, they were.
just shows that they're totally on board. And then what you were talking about too, of that's alluding to, well, how is that going to happen? How are they going to get people through the steps when they come in the door? And that's part of the stuff that we're working on, and programming and training. And Monty and I had to go to the airport, but Tom and the rest of the leaders stayed after and showed them how to do a weekly meeting. You can contact us, and we're giving them trainings, and they're going to contact me if they need X, Y, and Z. And Tom's still there, so he's going tonight and Thursday and Wednesday to Pasadena. So we're like in the process right now is, let's do this. This is how we're going to do it. And we're kind of getting the bugs out when they tell us what they need, because there's some things probably that they need that we don't know yet, and we'll figure it out. And so we're kind of in that development process now, which is exciting. I'm excited.
What was really cool was looking at that back row of all those Salvation Army officers in their dress uniforms, sitting back there.
Yeah.
And they're shaking, they're nodding, and to look at the smiles, and the commander for the West Coast was there, right?
Right.
I mean, this isn't just, there was a director of one program and we impressed them or something like that. This was a bunch of them.
Right. San Diego, Anaheim, Pasadena, Long Beach,
It's
right?
like
Or
having
something
6 4-star generals sitting in on your thing. You know what I mean?
And for them to see the beneficiaries coming up at the end and saying, I'm recovered and I'm so grateful and Jesus is God and I was agnostic, but now I'm this. And they were just like, what's going on here?
Yesterday when I was in the meeting with Major Nelson, he said, I watched, before I had said, because I was instructing on step 2 at this retreat, and at one point in the retreat it was so obvious and so noteworthy that everyone had kind of been sitting forward in their seats, and there was essentially, there was change happening before I even made the comment to the audience that, look at this, it's already touching you. Major Nelson had saw somebody go from arms crossed, head down, to sitting up, leaning forward, and had noted it and said, wow. Like, just, we all know this. Until you sit through this, it does sound fantastical, if that's a word.
Right.
Well,
right? All of us, everyone's, it can't happen. What? Everybody's a little skeptical. Everybody. Until you go through, and then that's it. You go through it, you go, well, yeah.
Well, it even happens to us, because I was sitting by Monty, and Friday you were teaching, I think, and Monty goes, ooh, this is a rough crowd.
Yeah, he's leaning over and said
oh,
that
no. Is this going to be rougher than normal? And this is like my 23rd retreat. And no, sure enough, every retreat it happens, and I don't know why I doubt it.
Yeah, because later I said, they're softening. It was
Right.
right
You
away.
could see it. You could feel it. It was every time it happens.
Hey, listen, guys, we're going to take our break now so we can get right into the topic and spend the rest of the time on the show on the topic. Does it sound good to you guys?
Sound good.
Okay, we'll be right back with the topic, surrender. Oh, brother. All right, don't go away. Hey there, my friends. Thanks for tuning in to this week's Came to Believe Recovery podcast, a production of the world's oldest recovery talk and recovery music radio station, Take 12 Recovery Radio. Did you know that we have thousands of archive shows recovery workshops, and recovery music, all available for you for fun and for free. Here's an idea. Right after this episode, visit our website at take12radio.com and subscribe on any of the podcasting platforms listed there. Why not begin enjoying the best in recovery talk and recovery music, all at take12radio.com on your internet dial. All righty, welcome back to the show. Hey, listen, coming up this week, just to let you know, this Friday on the Take 12 Recovery Radio Show, myself and Chris S. Going through the book, Walking Through the Language of the Heart. The topic will be the article, AA Communication Can Cross All Boundaries. So that will be Friday's show. Monday's show, Butch Weichel, I always pronounce his name wrong, Butch Weichel and Roger McDermott will be on the show to talk about the upcoming Recovery in the Park and how can you take recovery to the masses, particularly into your community, and help educate them and so forth and so on, and have a good time doing so. And then that brings us right back around to this show, the Came to Believe Recovery Podcast, where the topic will be setting boundaries. Next week, setting boundaries. So you don't want to miss any of those. All available right here at take12radio.com on your internet dial for fun and for free. All right, the topic, surrender. The release of a possession or a person, maybe even, right? So let's talk about surrender. Alicia, you sent out a very interesting piece. Did you want to share that?
What I found on the web?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are we ready to talk about it?
I am.
So.
Are you ready to surrender?
Right. Okay. So I found this on the web. I don't know where, but I Googled surrender and then this came up. And it said the word surrender appears nowhere in our two basic texts. That's the part you wanted me to read, right, Monty?
Yeah.
Okay. The Big Book and the 12 and 12. The term was avoided primarily because of its negative association with the Oxford group. There were two reasons for this. First, the group had a membership requirement where one had to make a surrender on one's knees in front of other members. The act was coerced, and to many alcoholics, it represented one of the most objectionable aspects of religion. That's one of the factors which eventually led to the break with the group and the formation of AA. The second reason was that at the time the Big Book was being written, the Oxford group had gotten caught up in a serious political controversy involving Europe and the Second World War. Using a well-known Oxford group term in the book might have drawn AA into that controversy. Moreover, at a time of war, which within a few months would ensnare the U.S. as well, the idea of surrender seemed to be totally out of place.
Yeah, I don't know if any of that is. I mean, that's certainly.
We don't know if that's true.
Yeah,
Right, it's on the web.
Looking for those. I mean, that whole World War II thing, that word surrender is only associated with the Oxford group. Like, there aren't other groups that talk about surrender. Like, how I'm questioning. The other thing I questioned right off the bat, which I hadn't yesterday, and I'm annoyed with this writing that, and I would love. I asked some of the experts, Alicia, here, some people that are with me that have a lot of history knowledge about this yesterday, if they knew anything about it being true. And I will tell you some things that we do know are true that I got from the horse's mouth about the separation of AA and the Oxford group. Is I never considered the 12 and 12 one of the basic texts. I don't know how that got to be considered one of the basic. I mean, I considered that we have one basic text. It's the Big Book. So I object to that. I don't think that the 12 and 12, we don't use it in here. Right. So
Monty agrees.
What do you think? I mean, would you so right there, I'm like, the two basic texts. What point of view is this writer coming from?
Yeah, yeah. So I took a little issue with particularly one statement in here, but you're right. So the idea that the 12 and 12 is one of the basic texts, what has happened is the Bad Coffee Recovery Fellowships have used this 12 and 12 as a big books. I mean, in place of a big book study, they call it a lot of meetings are called their step meetings, but they use the 12 and 12. The 12 and 12 is not the directions on how to work the steps. It's a great book. It's wonderful and all that stuff, blah, 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 but it is not the directions. The directions on how to work the steps is in the big book, the book called Alcoholics Anonymous. So if you're having a 12-step focused meeting and you're using the 12 and 12, call it a commentary on the 12 steps, some ways to apply and implement, maybe, but it's not the directives. So when they do that, you're right, Tom. It's misleading. The piece that I didn't like in this article was the act was talking about surrender. The act was coerced. So right away, they're doing a little church bashing. The act was coerced, and to many alcoholics, it represented one of the most objectionable aspects of religion. Was it though? We don't know. I mean, the original manuscript, when it talked about surrender, it talked about on our knees, and they removed that. Why did they remove that? But we alcoholics and addicts, we like to pick things apart that are work perfectly well. Well, I don't like that, so let's take it off. But we're finding more and more people that really experience a state of recovered. They go back to the original writings. They want to know, why did these folks so many years ago recover? And by the way, what they did was they monitored them until they died. They stayed sober until they died. They didn't monitor them for 3 years. It was till death. You know what I mean? And so, and then the war thing, it almost seems like this person is kind of criticizing the whole religion, and that word gets a bad rap, I think. The book of James talk about what is true religion. True religion, visiting with the widows and orphans and feeding the poor and people in prison. It's not a bad word. Why do we make it such a bad word?
The thing too is, I mean, we never heard, talking to Grace Snyder and all, and some of these people that were around with Clarence and Steve Foreman, I've never heard that the surrender on the knees. I mean, we know that the knees thing was taken out of the big book from a New York influence because it too aligned it with Christianity in general. But I don't know that it was objectionable. And we, just to say today, we'll tell people at retreats, I mean, you don't have to get on your knees if you don't want to.
No, of course not.
But 95% of them do.
Well, it's positioning yourself in a place of being humble. You can do that not on your knees, but it's also a Muslim thing.
Right.
They're on their knees several times a day.
To Allah. But what we do know is that that the Oxford group did believe in open confession. They believed in confessing to one another, and that there were Catholics coming to the meetings who, by their religion, couldn't do open confession. They had to do it with a priest.
Right.
And then we do know that Clarence pulled the people out of that Oxford group meeting because he said, what do we care? As long as they do it with somebody. They're religious. It's the point of the fifth step is do it with somebody. What's the requirement? A sympathetic ear, right?
Right.
That understands what you're doing. That's the requirement.
And it's a form of confession.
And if it has to be your priest, he didn't care. He said, that's not a place that we should draw a line. And so that was actually why Clarence left the Oxford Peak started the first AA meeting. So why knees were taken out of the big book? Was it coerced? I have take question of that too, Monty. I don't know that it was coerced. How does he make that statement? And that it was the most objectionable thing. I don't know that that's true. That's a pretty all-encompassing statement without some statistics. But we do know that they pulled out because of that. But other than that, I don't think that this has Accountability. It's very. If you were to take that as fact, it would point you in the wrong direction towards what we do. It would be a argument against what Came to Believe does as they're doing the steps.
And just because the word itself isn't used, certainly paragraphs, statements, and words that mean that are used. Okay, so we don't want to get too nitpicky here, but the deal of things like, he is the director, we are his children. Okay, that right there says, guess what? I'm surrendering to a power greater than myself. He's the director. He directs me. I don't direct me. That requires surrender, right?
Admitting you're an addict and your life's unmanageable, there's an element of letting go of some control there. I would say it's
turning your will and your life over to the care of God. Serving others and
power greater than myself could restore my sanity. Somehow you've let go of the idea that self. I think there's an element, Monty, of surrender and submission underneath all this with words. If you want to read it that way, you find it. And if you don't, you won't.
Well, submission itself is surrender, right? The word submission.
I think so.
And step 3 through 7 are the submission phase of the 12 steps, correct?
It's and today, I mean, I can't believe this was as big an argument in the 30s because of the more Judeo-Christian, the more Bible belt was. I mean, they didn't have the woke world in the 30s or 40s, so that would have caused so much controversy back then. I could see it causing it today, but back then, I don't know. I think they had a much easier time getting them on their knees than we would today, even though we don't have trouble with it.
It would seem so.
Yes.
Yeah. It's kind of like, and I said this the other day, I was in the car, I think, with you guys or somebody, and I said, there was a time when even people that claimed to be atheists cringed when people used the Lord's name in vain. They didn't even like it.
Yeah.
It was a different world, man.
So, to kind of pivot here a little with whether the word is bad or who took the word out or why the word was taken and what it represents, is the idea that it's a submission or a surrender is, they say the surrender was a must. Well, we know that there's writings that say the surrender was a must, submission was a must, the turning over of your power, the recognition that a power greater than yourself was a must. Well, it was. It was. Yeah. If you wanted this thing to work, you had to let go of the thoughts that didn't work. So that is a crucial part of recovery when you're doing the 12-step program, is at some point and early on, you have to let go of your beliefs that didn't work. You do. And submit. What do you mean submit? What do you mean oh my gosh, sometimes you just want to
Well, Tom, let's just say this.
You're sitting in a rehab center and you're...
Yeah.
Well,
so exactly. The word submit, I mean, it gets a bad rap too. But literally, in the Greek, it means to fall under the protective covering of whatever, right? It's to come underneath. In fact, when it talks about wives submit to your husbands, it means to come underneath a protective covering. It doesn't mean you become a slave, like we're talking about. And so if I'm coming under the protective covering of something, now I am under that authority, right?
But then as soon as you say authority, that's...
Woo, boy, baby, there's another one.
The authority is a bad...
But I'm protected. I'm safe and protected. So that kind of puts a different light on the whole.
And authority comes with responsibility. Those that are given authority, take a look at that. That person is responsible for wielding authority judiciously, respectfully, sensitively. So it depends who you're wielding your authority to.
Right.
The God who made creation. Yeah, all right. I think he's got authority. I think he's proven he can do the leader. I mean, we all have authorities in our lives, and everybody recognizes the the place of that authority figures put in our lives. I love that thing in the big book where it says, if we stood out in our street clothes to try to stop cars, they'd just run us over. Or put on a policeman's uniform and they stop.
It's just,
We have no more physical power than we had before, but we now have the authority, right?
yeah.
And so that's recognized, you know. Same thing here. We're going to put ourselves into the authority of someone who has the uniform of recovery, who has done this for us, who has the power to show us our freedom. I've never been freer than when I surrendered.
Oh, amen.
Right? I've never had more power. I've never had more autonomy than when I did it. It's whatever they call it, ironical or an oxymoron.
So I have a question for you guys. Let's see what you think. So, I when somebody is a chronic relapser, who, and let me just preface this by saying, who appears anyway to be walking through the step process, going to the topic meetings or whatever, even has a sponsor who is taking them through the steps, I would say the proper way, the way the book has it, and has been doing this year after year after year after year, and even been in treatment over and over and over again, and they just can't seem to stay clean or sober. Is there an element of surrender that they're not doing? And what if they really truly believe they are? And you're watching, you're going, gosh, it sure does seem like they are. What is going on? So we've all known people like that, right?
And
my question is, okay, is this guy or gal, have they really surrendered? And, you know, the poor guy's like, I hate this part of my life. Why am I, and they're a believer. And the only thing I can think of is there's an element of surrender that hasn't happened, but I don't know what that element is. What do you guys think?
You go ahead if you have something.
I'm thinking that
turning things in my head.
I would just think that at that last point, like if they're white knuckling it or praying and feeling really good, and then all of a sudden they have that urge of, this is the day I'm gonna relapse, whether they're feeling it, knowing it, saying out loud or not, that's when they need to like realize, this is the point. I need to call my sponsor now. I need to pray now. Or, but then actually doing it, yeah, it's a hard thing. But then too, biblically, it says we want to do the things we don't want to do, and we keep doing it. But at a certain point, we need to not do the thing, and not buy the drugs, and not eat the stuff.
Well, we can recognize, I think, God, that there's a power greater than me. There's a God in this world who is the authority, and then not let it. I hate this statement. I'll get nailed for this. Him be the Lord of your life. He's your Savior, but he's not the Lord of your life.
He's not your Lord sometimes. Yeah.
Or you can rule these things, but not
these things, right? I mean, free will is this terrible thing we had and wonderful thing we've had. So I think, can you be, all right, I'm going to go here, guys, saved and be messing with defects and having consequences? I think there's a case to be made that you can, because nobody's perfect.
Right.
But to be recovered is a different story. You would not be recovered. Could you be saved and not recovered? I think so.
Yes.
Probably you could be. And you just haven't given you're at least, you're right, not every aspect of your life. I mean, but for us, it's risky because not given every aspect, the consequences are greater than they are for the quote unquote normies. Or not, because we know some normies that live at this, lower level all the time. Nothing really bad happens, but also nothing really good happens either.
Yeah.
Right? And we live, with a different level. The highs have never been higher for me since I did it. And so, yeah, I think they can, Monty. There's levels of submission for sure. You only submit what you give, and you can keep some things back.
Sure.
You see it all the time.
So it was interesting. If you recall, one of the people that shared at the Came to Believe portion of the weekend at the end, and I don't know why he brought this up, but he said, well, I just don't believe in the once saved, always saved thing, And I thought, what's that got to do with what,
Right.
what the Believe part is? But he was in my small group, and he also said that there, which spurred some discussion. And I simply said, and this goes to surrender, it really does. I said, did you earn your salvation by your behavior? No. Then please tell me how you can lose it by your behavior.
Exactly.
You didn't get it by your behavior. You got it because of what he did. So to say that my behavior can destroy that, saying that God's not big enough to cover my active character defects. Because I gave the example that if I go out and stick a needle in my arm and I'm driving and I get in a car wreck and I die, and I'm a believer, do I lose my salvation? And the guy later, not in the group, was talking to me, and he goes, well, I think so. And I said, okay. So if you're a diabetic and you got a drawer full of Oreo cookies, the Bible says for him to do what is wrong and still does it is sin, right? So if you're eating those Oreo cookies, you have a stroke and you die. Did you lose your salvation? He said, that's different.
It's not different.
How is that different? So you're either saved or you're not saved. It isn't based on my level of surrender other than the initial salvation piece. We're in a process of sanctification the rest of our lives, right?
Exactly. It's a process forever. Forever.
Yeah. So I can't polish up the flesh. I want to surrender more than I do. I think that's where it lies, guys. What is my desire? Do I really want to surrender this thing? And I'm wondering about that, about the example of the guy that keeps relapsing. People say, well, you got to want it. Well, not always. Sometimes you'll be intervened on when you don't want it, and it'll save your life. I didn't want to go to my first AA meeting. I didn't want to get rattled out of bed and be taken off to treatment. But it happened, and I did, and thank God I did. But there is an element of, at some point, you need to have some desire, right? Otherwise, you won't complete it, or you won't continue in it. And so is it a level of, if I don't have any desire to submit at some point in this process, I'm probably not going to succeed.
Well, all the evidence and all their, empirical, anecdotal, actual evidence said that you wouldn't.
Right.
They said, our experience is that people that don't completely surrender everything, keep a defect, which is what this says in 5, we see what is they invariably get drunk. And they didn't put anything behind it, but that this is what we see. It happens that we all get drunk when they do it. And we would say the same thing. If you don't do your 4 or 5, leave something out and don't do 10, 11, and 12. It won't surprise us that you're drinking. I mean, it's the recovery assurance. We're going to change that language, Alicia, too, because I got recovery. What's the word in the book that we don't like? Relapse prevention.
Relapse prevention. I don't like that.
I got an email today about the use of that term within the dates of the Salvation Army. I had to dial that back. I don't want to get all right. That's a side note, but I like recovery assurance. But recovery assurance speeds right into this. It's continually submitting. So that's the other thing. I mean, we don't just submit once. We are continuing in a place of submission. I am. Is it surrender? I mean, it's not surrender like the military, because it's a surrender in the military means you lose. Surrendering army loses. A surrendering team in a football team loses. There is an element to that. We get that. Surrender can have a whole definition, which is that you've given up in a
wait for the closing thought. Oh, yay. Okay, I won't give it
but
away.
we are losing our addiction, hopefully.
Right.
and
But
losing our control attitude.
well, that's a good way to look at it. But the thing we're losing, we never wanted. It's the thing
We
that's
don't want
killing
it
us.
Well,
anyways.
it's that
Yeah.
paradox again. You know, in order to win, you got to give up. You get in order, you know, the loot. You know that thing is that winners. What is it? Smilers never win, and founders never lose, or founders never. I don't know. Founders never win, and smilers always
Yeah.
win, or something like that.
I think you just
Totally
take it.
lost my trade of thought. Oh, so to give up is to actually gain, right?
Right. But to put it in the context of the military, and to, well, the surrender in an army wouldn't be good. They're not. I wouldn't want to use that as an example. It's not the example of surrender that we're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be, you know, I was in the service. If we surrender, we lost in a bad way. There's something we were fighting for, our justice and rightness and good, and we decided that we were going to let them take us over. In that sense, it would not be a good thing.
Yeah, because you're going to go to the POW camp, man.
Right. Yeah, it's not okay. I mean, you might get executed. I mean,
Yeah.
they were executing. So to add that to it, I take, you know, umbrage with that. But submitting to this power, surrendering those things which have been objectionable to us, when we realize I have lived a certain way and I don't want these things. These things were the things keeping me in bondage. Now I'm going to be free. If I surrender holding on to terrible things, that is a great use of it. And why wouldn't we use the word surrender? I don't know. I would use it. We use the word surrender when we talk in our program. And it was used back in the day. Just because it's not in the book doesn't mean that that's not something that's done.
How do you?
Well, I mean,
Go ahead, Alicia.
I was going to say we do it, whether the word is surrender or submit or turning,
Right.
every day in step 10. If I'm prideful or judgmental, I need to surrender that. Even if I don't want to, or with anything that I'm working through, food it's really a work in progress for me. I mean, I'm still in the thick of the stuff, even though I say I'm recovered 5 years. It's not a walk in the park every day. It's really not.
Yeah, and she's got everybody scared, Monty. We were in the meeting with the Salvation Army yesterday, right? And Major
And
Nelson,
I didn't even say anything
Major
this
Nelson had
weekend.
had a full Coke. He goes, Alicia's not with you, is she?
Coke is liquid diabetes. And
Her-
so is
her
juice.
infamy follows. He didn't want to. He said, no. I said, well, you are drinking a lot of sugar there, maybe.
Don't get me started. Yeah, but yeah, it's just like every day we need to submit, turn, whether it's food with me or pride or impatience, right? We need to turn it.
Or a person,
Yes.
because usually when I'm having a struggle, whether it's food, whether it's drugs, whether it's a person, right? It's because I'm not surrendering a part of me. You know, I'm holding on to my ego or whatever. There's a part of me. It's not really their problem. It's my problem.
Well, that's very emotionally.
Yes.
disturbed.
I was going
know?
through that, well, every day with keeping my mouth shut. Why do I have to say anything about what they're eating or what they're drinking? Why? And then sometimes it's just like it comes out and I did it again. And it's and I'm not sure that's just an ongoing process, right? Of surrendering it to God, because I can say, I just can't stop. I should be able to stop that, right?
Well, then you got to draw it back up to the big nature that you haven't fully let go of.
Intolerance, pride.
And,
I can name them.
Yeah.
Judgment.
It's like trying to clean up, you know, if you ever had water that was leaking or something and it's just moving down the counter. And so you wipe it off and then it keeps moving down the counter. You wipe it off. You get, you know, it's like that, you know, Paul talks about it. Everything I want to do, I don't do. You know what I mean? It's just like, but do you stop wiping it off? No, you keep wiping it off. At some point, it'll dry up. you know. And so what I was thinking in my heart in changing the way I was feeling about this individual, I thought this will have a payoff somewhere, I hope, you know. And it seemed to dry up some, not completely. And there was some interaction that was pretty funny and actually very nice. And I thought, okay, that's because we give up to him, but we don't give in to the process of trying to improve our thinking and change our thinking, you know. Because I don't know about you guys, but most of my surrender issues surround around relationships. That guy in the meeting, oh my God, is he going to share again? You know, or whatever.
Yeah.
You know,
People.
people.
I say if there wasn't any people, I'd be okay.
Yeah, my son says that.
Except you. You're still there.
I go, but Cameron, you are a person. You are people. He goes, I know, and I don't like people.
And you know, I was telling somebody last night I didn't really want to go to dinner with the gang because I'm kind of getting over being around
With people.
Yeah.
I'm people, and it's not anybody in particular. It's that sharing a bathroom and living out of a suitcase, and
Right.
you know, I want to go to the bathroom. I'm used to just going, not the doors closed. Why is the doors closed? There's somebody in it, right? But these are those things. But when your life is set like that, and then day after day after day, things get on you, and there's tolerance, and I am happy with myself because I have not had any meltdown because I've gotten the mature thing to say, why is it such a big deal, Tom? Like, well, it's not. So I can stop my feet right now and not get in the bathroom, or just wait my turn and be in peace and not get in the bathroom. Right? It's the same now.
Yeah.
How do I want to?
Yeah.
You know, I'm better. I'll tell someone else that. You could be angry and pump your feet and be in traffic, or you can be whistling a happy tune and listening to music and be in traffic.
Mm-hmm. Well,
There's
it's like
choice.
getting it right
Choice.
or being right.
Yeah. Well,
Which
we're always
I
us, the
teach.
three of us, so it's okay. Our problem more is how everyone else is wrong.
Right.
Right?
That's what I do. That's why I
know you do.
blurt it out. And
And
then
even if they are wrong, even if we're right, it isn't healthy to blame. It just isn't. Or you know what I mean? Or do that. You may be absolutely correct. They may be a knucklehead.
right. But why do I have to point that out?
Right.
I mean, there are hills to die on, there are fights to fight, and fights not to fight. And then
Yeah.
you say, why am I going to fight that fight? There's a few things over the weekend that people said things that are just absolutely dead wrong. In just general conversation.
I know.
about
I was picking
whatever,
up on some of that too.
a bunch of stuff, and I just thought to
Let
myself,
it go.
do I just comment on that as just not right? I mean, they were just general comments in a passing conversation that they're just blatantly not true. And you just went, well, it's not really hurting anybody, whatever. And I was better for it because I checked myself. Why do I need to be right? Is this sometime that I really have to do this correction? Or am I just one? Because it is that a lot of times. We just think we're right. We got to just correct everybody all the time. I mean, maybe not everybody's like that, but it seems to be a human tendency. It gives us some sort of power or authority. It puts us in some position, even if we don't think it does. It does. We're going to correct them. Then that maybe we now occupy this position of, you know,
Pride.
whatever.
It's pride for
over
me.
them,
I'll just
and-
say it.
Me too.
It's
Me
pride.
too.
Right.
It's not you. It's me.
It's
my,
totally.
It's my thing. You know, and I don't know how many times in my life I actually got up enough guts to go to somebody and say, hey, you know, when you do this, that really hurts or whatever. They had no idea.
Well, that's, yeah.
No idea. You know, it's interesting because the team, I called that the team, the group of people that came to believe, everybody, if you were to do a reality show, everybody is a strong personality.
In their
Everybody.
own right.
Each person has very strong personality traits, and they're not wrong. They're just strong. Lots of times you'll be with a group of people, and some will be really timid, you know, and some you just can't figure out. But you know, everybody has got really amazing, amazing personality traits. I'm sitting back and I'm listening to you guys as you present, and I'm like, each and every one of these presenters is gifted in the way they present. They all present a little differently. One's a little louder, one's a little softer, one's a little more scripturally going there. Another one's more steppy, but they're all amazing. Every single one of you guys do a bang up job. And that's the kind of way the kingdom of God is. There's a lot of strong personalities. And then there's ones that aren't so strong that God uses too. But as far as presentation teams go that I've worked with before, I'm just telling you guys, it's amazing to watch. And I think that's one of the reasons why the leadership, to be that way and be effective, you have to have an attitude of submission. You have to have an attitude of submission. So it's obvious that is happening. And people pick up on that. They may not even realize it. And it's what I call being authentic. People are authentic. When they see your authenticity, they will give you credibility. They will. And the leadership of the Salvation Army could see it clearly, whether they realize that's what it is or not. Because I was watching them, man, and they were right on the same page with each and every one of you guys. So how do you know people are surrendering? Look at the results in the things they're called to do. And I'm not saying because they're such great people at surrendering. It's the Lord. It's the Lord.
Yeah, look at the fruit. It's all, the level
fruit.
of submission and surrender, I think, is evidenced in the fruit. How's it working for you? Is the whole concept that we want to say. Whenever it's not working for me, it's almost always taking something back or making a stand or drawing the line someplace or working out of fear or some sort of ego or pride, right? Trying to position myself to protect, which is fear, somehow.
Wow.
And it's so surrender, submit.
Yeah.
The bottom line is, if you're stuck on that word surrender, lighten up, Francis. Did you guys see?
Or use another word, but still do it.
Yeah, use another word.
Call it whatever you want.
Stripes, when the guy says, if anybody touches my stuff, then I'll kill you, right? Gordon says, lighten up, Francis. I said, sometimes if that's where you're going to draw your line on that word, you got more things to worry about, I think.
Yeah.
If people are pushing your buttons, you got to ask yourself, why are my buttons sticking out so far?
Right.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that one.
It goes back to when I'll complain about something and Marshall will say, so what is it about that that's gotten you so upset?
Got it.
Right.
Like, I don't want to go there. I just want to be upset.
Yeah.
It's button is that pushing. Why is it so exposed?
Right.
Let's remove that button. If you got the button, somebody's going to push it.
Somebody is going to push it. They're going to rub up against it, and it's going to pop on it, even if it's unintentional. Guys, we're out of time.
We're out of time. Yep.
Closing thoughts. Alicia, you first, then Tom.
I would say I encourage all of us and you out there to question and be honest with what do you still have to surrender? Do you have anything else to surrender? And if you're fighting that word, find another word. And maybe it's submit, maybe it's just turning your so-and-so, whatever it is, over. But learning to and be honest because we all have something to surrender, whether it's an object or an addiction or a defect of character. We need to turn it over and communicate and learn what that even means.
Yeah. Tom?
Our liabilities in life, the ability to recognize our liabilities and name them, is that process of surrender and submission. If we're holding on to something, I love what you said, honest. It's finally time to get honest on what isn't working in our lives.
Yeah.
Be honest. This is a liability. It's one thing to say I'm a procrastinator or I'm judgmental, but when you cross the line to say, and it's not good for me, that's when something can change. When you've said, and it's no good, I'm not holding on to it as a stronghold, that I'm judgmental and it's because I'm right all the time, right? 'Cause that's where that goes. I'm judgmental because people are so I think getting really honest about what are liabilities in your life and then letting them go. I like Alicia, if you don't like surrender, find something else. But how's it working for you? If our liabilities are not good, liability is something that's a problem. Liability is not good in finance and everything. Every liability is a bad word, and we want them out of our life. You'd have to let them go. Surrender it or
Right.
submit.
Right.
So,
Amen. Amen. Our closing song is by recovery recording artist Amanda Broadway, and then you'll get my closing thoughts right at the end. Interestingly enough, this song is titled "I Surrender." Here's Amanda.
How can you see through the muddy waters in me? I can't catch the thoughts between the lines. Nothing seems right to define these feelings in me, all like broken glass I'm treading on. Another night from dusk to dawn, then another morning comes and nothing changes. Yeah, I know time takes time, so I accept that just for today. I am broken and I'm afraid of surrender. What a mess I've made. I've trampled love and run away. I've hid from insecurities. Still I can't find relief of this indigestion with the clog in my emotions. I lay down on my pillow and the tears fall, 'cause nothing changes. Yeah, I know time takes time, so I accept that just for today. I am broken and I'm afraid of surrender. The only place I need to live. I learn to love and to forgive in the meantime. And I find peace in the hope that you believe in me, that you see something that I don't. Yeah, something's changing. Yeah, I know time takes time, so I accept that just for today. I am broken, but I'm okay, 'cause I surrender. No, I don't have to fight anymore. No. Whoa, yeah, I surrender. I give it all up to you, no more this pretending.
Probably the most well-known symbol of surrender is the waving of a white flag, and has been used in Western warfare for centuries. It is thought to have originated in China during the Eastern Han Dynasty in the first 3 centuries AD. The color white has long been associated with death and mourning in China, so its soldiers adopted white surrender flags to show their sorrow in defeat. The white flag was written into the Geneva Conventions in the 19th century as the official international symbol of surrender. It is still the international standard and is used both in combat situations and popular culture. So here's my question. What is your symbol of surrender? When you come to realize that you have exhausted all your human resources and simply cannot move forward in your own strength, how do you declare that you have surrendered? In the recovery process, surrender does not mean giving up on yourself. What it does mean is we are changing direction. We are repositioning ourselves to align with our Creator, so authentic change can take place. Change that will be the launching platform to fit us to be of maximum service to God and those around us. Remember, surrender isn't giving up on yourself, but rather giving all up to God. It's something to think about. Came to Believe Recovery strives to create and promote opportunities for life-changing spiritual experiences for individuals and families suffering from all forms of addiction. For more information, help, and support, visit cametobelieverecovery.org. I'd like to thank you for allowing me to be your host on this episode of the Came to Believe Recovery podcast. And I would encourage you to like, bookmark, and subscribe to this show. When you do, you will join the Take 12 Recovery Radio family and will be notified of all of our recovery-focused shows throughout the week. Until our next broadcast, when we provide the essential spiritual tools needed to thrive by sharing our experience, our strength, and our hope through our stories of how we came to believe.
This has been a production of Take 12 Recovery Radio.
Yeah, kitty, kitty, kitty. Meow.
Woof, woof.
This has been a Chicken and a Pig production.